talk about one of Alabama's top quarterback products. How about projects? How about prospects? One of those guys making their official visit official. He's going to be visiting in June. We'll talk about that. We're also going to continue the roster countdown, Jimmy Stein's world famous roster countdown. Today we're going to do numbers 87, 86, and 81. So stick with us here on Locked On Bama.
Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey again, everybody, and welcome back into Locked On Bama. Luke Robinson, that's me. Jimmy Stein, that's him. Jimmy, how are you today?
Good. Enjoying this beautiful weather outside. I'm not sure if this is spring or summer. I think we'll call it spring here. Probably be summer anywhere else.
I think Jimmy is doing this podcast from his latest set of Survivor. I mean, yeah, I've never seen you outside like that. I didn't know you went outside, frankly. I've only seen you in a car or in a very cramped office. Or at your mom's house.
You think I'm a vampire or something? No, I'm just enjoying. I just live near multiple parks, I guess you call it. So I'm at the park.
Jimmy, one of Alabama's top quarterback prospects, dare I say the top quarterback prospect on Alabama's board, Eli Holstein, has set his official visit for June 10th through 12th. He is apparently going to also take in visits to LSU and Oregon, which seem kind of new names to the fold, but I found that interesting. And then it turns out that particular weekend is going to be a big weekend when it comes to Alabama recruiting. So all pretty big news right there.
Isn't it crazy? I mean, with this recruiting calendar such as it is, that you would have your biggest recruiting weekend of the year in June. It's why I hate the recruiting calendar, frankly, and I don't like the early signing day, which kind of caused all this. But you either do it during the summer or you have official visits during games, which is just incredibly tough on the staff and the coaches, to say nothing of the kids, who aren't getting a real look at things because game weekends are so different than anything else all year long. So that's why we have official visit weekends in June. And again, I hate it. But the real story here is Eli Holstein. We've been talking about it for weeks here and Locked On. So many people have a hard time wrapping their heads around this, but that Eli could be Alabama's top QB prospect and not Arch. Really, I sort of look at it this way. I think it's a 1A and 1B thing. But the fact of the matter is Eli is going to be ready to make a decision before Arch. And if you put all the eggs in the Arch basket, you could end up 0 for 2. And 0 for 2 is just unacceptable considering how good both of these kids are. I think we ought to focus on how great Holstein is, and the fact that Holstein could commit on that June trip or even before then is possible, I think. He's obviously seriously considering LSU. He's seriously considering the Oregon Ducks, who are recruiting really, really well. They got a big-time running back out of Mississippi this past weekend that was I think that kid's nationally underrated. He's a really good player, Dante Dowdle. But I'm excited about Holstein locking in this official. Alabama is his first official visit. You can't say that means Alabama is a clear leader, but I think when you add up everything with Holstein, Alabama is the clear leader.
And it is interesting because we just did something for Locked On. It may be out by now. I don't know. But Alabama representatives from Locked On, for Alabama being me, Texas, and Georgia, they had a good idea where each one of us would talk to Arch in a podcast form as if we're talking to him, like in a bachelor format, about why he should choose our particular schools. And I kept thinking the whole time while I was doing this, and I did it because I'm a company man and I'm going to do what I'm told. But the whole time I was doing it, I was thinking, in the end, I'm not so sure we wouldn't rather have Eli Holstein. But anyway, I found that kind of interesting because that should be out, and that'll be a lot of fun if you want to pay attention to that or be on the lookout for it, anybody. When we come back, we want to get back into our roster countdown. I say our roster countdown. Jimmy does it. I just regurgitate it. But right now, I want to talk about Built Bars. Let me tell y'all something, man.
I ate one for breakfast. It was outstanding.
I had one for breakfast too, Jimmy, and this is it right here.
That's what I ate. One of them.
the birthday cake ones. I'm telling you that they're delicious. They're delicious, nutritious, scrumptious. Imagine dipping your finger into that plastic tub of birthday cake frosting. I've done it. You've done it. We've all done it. And then opening your eyes and realizing it was only 150 calories and 16 grams of protein. Man, that would be fantastic. That is what it's like to eat a birthday cake puff from Built. I just received my birthday cake puffs. I just showed them to you, and I have never had anything like these before. They're awesome. Marshmallowy, a little bit gooey, but not too gooey. Just taste awesome, and they really fill you up. They got me through the entire morning. Absolutely fantastic. Go to built.com to get your birthday cake puffs now. Go to built.com, use promo code LOCK15, get 15% off that order. Use promo code LOCK15 for 15% off that order at built.com. Go to built.com, use promo code LOCK15. All right, Jimmy, roster countdown goes on. We're going to start with Amari Nablak. Am I saying that right?
I used to say it that way, but I'm told it's Nablak.
When you say you used to say it that way,
yeah.
You said it that way yesterday.
I may have. No. I mean, I think it's because all during recruiting, I said Niblack all during recruiting, and then after signing day, I heard it was Nablak, so I've had to try to change the way I say it. And boy, that's hard to do the older you get. When I say it the first way, it's hard for me to shake that. But you know, my radio partner, Randy Kennedy, he's brought this up for years. It's so true. And now I work in the recruiting industry. I need to make this like my soapbox issue at On 3. I think when your school is recruiting a kid that you may be likely to get, the recruiting reporter that's talking to the kid and that does the interviews needs to provide a phonetic pronunciation for the kids that aren't Smith and James and Thompson. We need pronunciation guides. They provide one in the media guide at Alabama. If you get the media guide at Alabama, or even go to the official roster on rolltide.com, they have a pronunciation guide for the tougher names. And we need to do that throughout the recruiting industry. But no, my understanding is it's Amari Nablak.
So it's like in apostrophe black instead of N-I black. Now I know that's how he spells it, but you know, you said something funny. I always like bring in something either Louis C.K. said or Daniel Tosh or something, but this was a Louis C.K. thing where he had a whole bit about how he was talking about Native Americans and how we call them Indians, and how when Christopher Columbus came over and he saw them and they introduced themselves or whatever they did, and he was like, hey, y'all are Indians, and they were like, no, we're not Indians. That's a completely different place. And he was like, wait a minute, you're not Indians? And they were like, no, we're not Indians. And he was like, you're Indians. And
we still
calling them Indians. And it's not really right. And that's how it is when you get our age and you say a name wrong, like you just keep saying it wrong. And eventually it sort of sticks. I mean, there was another case, and I'm not trying to waste any time here, but there was another case. I think I told this story on here before. I had a friend of mine whose name is Tom McMullen, super guy, good friend of mine, really nice, a lot of fun. He's got your hair, like the super white hair. Anyway,
super. It is super.
His name is Tom McMullen. So, as your name devolves into something else, his name devolved into Mullet, like we just called him Mullet. And for no reason, he doesn't have a mullet. We just call him that. He doesn't even like fishing for mullet. He just Mullet. Well, an much older friend of mine who's now passed, we were all sitting around talking. And you know how sometimes when you're really old, you start a sentence and then you kind of quit and you got to like almost get your breath to finish the sentence. So this older friend was saying something like, Tom McMullen said something. And this older friend goes, but Mullet. And then he quit talking. And I go, Butt Mullet. So we started calling him Butt Mullet. And there's nothing that sounds worse on this earth than a butt mullet.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. I bet this is his least favorite story.
This is he's one of the few people I've ever used their actual name in these stories.
Yeah. I bet if his Tinder name is Butt Mullet, he doesn't get a lot of swipe rights.
You have to have a very specific fetish to be like butt mullet. Yeah, I'm into that. Okay.
Some girl out there doing a search for butt mullet.
Don't Google image that thing. At least not on Not Safe for Work. But anyway, James Burnip is number 86. And he is going to be a sophomore, correct?
He's a redshirt sophomore. I believe what happened with him, and boy, this is worthy of more investigation, but I'm pretty sure what happened is he enrolled in college in Australia. And the American rule is, even though he wasn't playing American football, wasn't even playing sports. I mean, he might have been playing rugby or Australian rules football or something, but your clock starts ticking when you enroll in college. So I think his redshirt year in college was actually spent in Australia. And last year, 2021, was his redshirt freshman year at Alabama. So I think that makes him a redshirt sophomore this fall, which means he would have 3 years of eligibility left starting this fall. And he may need to use them all as he is literally learning how to punt in front of our eyes, which really, to me, makes this story amazing. The fact that he's the punter at Alabama, literally learning to do this. And I thought this spring, from my look at him, Luke, I thought he was really improved. I thought he went from he's not great to, hey, you know what? He's pretty good. He's pretty good. Now, no one's going to watch him this fall and go, oh, we finally found our J.K. Scott. But, you don't have to be that good. You just have to be, for Alabama to win games, Luke, we just have to be SEC average at punter. And I mean it as a compliment when I say this fall he could be SEC average.
And I'll take that. I mean, you don't have to be an all-world punter at Alabama. I mean, they can't all be J.K. Scotts. J.K. Scott, in my opinion, is the best punter that's ever come through the University of Alabama.
Hey, what the hell do I know about punting? I thought that punt god, dude, Matt Araiza from San Diego State, was the best college punter I have ever seen in my life. I would have staked that on, on a hefty bet. And he was the third punter taken in the draft. I couldn't believe it.
It's almost like the NFL wants to insult them. Like, we want to let you know how unimportant you are by drafting people who are worse than you are.
This guy punts the ball 75 yards.
Well, Jimmy, about Burnip too, that's a dumb NCAA rule. Like, I get it a little bit if you're enrolled in college at the University of Queensland or whatever, but if you don't play a sport, I don't think it should count. He's already got to come over here and get used to the toilet swirling the wrong way. Can you cut the kid a break? Okay, Jimmy, let me go ahead and tell, before we get into Cameron Latu, we're going to save a whole segment for him because he's one of the more intriguing players on the team next year, if you ask me. Right. We're going to talk about Bet Online. Our partners at Bet Online continue to be number one source for all your betting needs and sports info. You can find all the latest odds there at Bet Online. Just go there. It's so simple. They've got all the latest odds, news, sports developments, including this year's basketball playoffs, Major League Baseball scores, fights, and even next season's NFL futures, along with college football futures. Bet Online is your continued source for all your sports wagering information, from live betting to playoffs to esports and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device. It's that simple to learn more about the trends and action going on at Bet Online, because Bet Online is where the game starts. Okay. Cameron Latu. Jimmy, I'm going to read off some of his stats, and we'll go from there. So last year, 26 receptions, 410 yards, 8 touchdowns. That shocks me that he had 8 touchdowns last year. I did not think he had 8 touchdowns, with a long of 61. Now, this is a guy that did start out on defense, correct?
Correct, his freshman year. That's right. He played defense his whole redshirt freshman year at Alabama. He played defense. Well, no, wait. It was during his true freshman year, but he only played in 3 games and was able to redshirt. But he did play in games as a freshman on defense before moving to offense and tight end in year 2.
All right, so they've got him listed as a junior. I just want to be clear about this. Next year, he will actually be a redshirt junior?
He is, when you factor in the COVID year, he is a redshirt junior this fall. So he could return. He could return in 2023. Luke,
but we doubt it.
I doubt it. And on top of the fact, he went through graduation this spring. So he's graduated from Alabama and will be in graduate school this fall. So I wouldn't anticipate him returning. Plus, I think he's a pretty draftable kid. Those stats that you just went over, Luke, how about these two stats that go along with that? He actually led the SEC in touchdown receptions from the tight end position, led the whole league. And that actually set a school record at Alabama. 8 touchdowns in a season from the tight end position is a school record as well. So obviously he is an asset catching the ball. I think the challenge for Latu this fall in his last season is just improving as a blocker. And I think if he improves as a blocker, he could hear his name called next April in the NFL draft.
Yeah, I could see his being drafted. He's such a superb athlete. I think it's a huge positive if you start out playing linebacker and then you move on to tight end, because you instinctively kind of know what linebackers are supposed to do, and so you might have an edge, right?
I'm sure that time on defense sort of helped him. He actually did play tight end in high school. It wasn't a brand new position to him, but virtually everybody in the country that was recruiting him, and there were a lot of schools recruiting Cameron, they were all recruiting him to play defense, as did Alabama. Alabama only moved him in part out of desperation. They didn't move him because they thought, hey, you know what? He might be better at tight end. They moved him because they were short on bodies in the tight end room at the time. And he's worked at it. He gets better every year. I think he's going to get better again. And while he's not a superstar, he's not one of the very best players on the team. He's pretty solid to me, Luke. I think he's one of the better tight ends in the SEC. And if he improves as a blocker, he could be very elite.
Yeah, I certainly feel like he has potential to be in the all SEC discussion. I look for him to have a really, really nice year. Again, it's kind of hard to look at a position on offense outside of offensive line and go, who's not going to really sort of shine? I mean, now you can't have the best tight end year with the best running back year with the best quarterback year with the best wide receiver year. But like, if you ask me, which one do you think is really going to shine? I mean, the easy answer, of course, is Bryce Young. And then I guess I would go Gibbs, but I might put Latu somewhere up there close too, over some of these other receivers we just picked up.
Yeah, I think he could end up being around 3rd or 4th in receptions on the team, somewhere around there. But, you know, if posed with that question, I'd go Gibbs as Gibbs and the running back room as the strength of the offense, particularly because Gibbs and Jace McClellan are so good catching the ball out of the backfield.
Yeah, McClellan, the video of McClellan going through some drills here recently was borderline erotic. I mean, he's getting better.
Yeah, and I've been watching the replay of the Florida game in the past few days, and I'm telling you, I don't think Alabama wins that Florida game without Jace McClellan. He was very good.
Was that the game he got hurt?
Yes, at the very end.
God, I mean, I'm telling you, man, I know everybody deals with injuries. It just feels like we always just have that. We get snake bit on occasion. We got snake bit last year, but that's last year. We're looking forward to next year, and we're also looking forward to our next podcast, which will be tomorrow. And until then, Jimmy, why don't you enjoy some of that beautiful sunshine behind you and go catch you a raccoon to eat or whatever you're about to do.
Yeah, if a raccoon is running through the stands and is grabbed by someone who grabs the raccoon by the neck, you are not looking at me. I did not do that because I would not. I'm more like the guy that fell over 3 rows of chairs trying to get out of the way. Hey, by the way, I heard an anecdote to that story. You know that guy that carried the raccoon out, the dude that caught the raccoon? He carried it outside the stadium and he got bit.
Oh, I mean, of course he did.
Yeah, he did. He got bit and he had to, and he's going through rabies treatment.
Look, I probably have told you this, and you probably know it because we have a friend who's got like a raccoonophobia. But I'm going to tell this story for people who hadn't heard it. So if you please stay tuned and listen, you will enjoy this story about a raccoon. It's not Alabama related, but it is a story about a raccoon. Growing up, I had 3 pet raccoons in succession. We got a big one first, and that was stupid because you can't do anything with them. Then we got a very young one, which my brother at his young age thought he had brought inside, but didn't. And it crawled into, like, somehow got into my dad's car and rolled all the way into town in somewhere around the exhaust pipe. And when it got to where Dad got to work, my uncle accidentally ran over it. So then we had a third raccoon. And this one we kept for about a year and a half. That's about all you can keep them because they are wild animals. They're not domesticated, but they're a ton of fun. But what you do is you let them go, and they go have some baby raccoons. Then they come back one time, and you feed them M&Ms. That's just the way it works. Well, one day, my brother or my mother, somebody had left the door open. And so my mom was in the bathroom. My dad was in his bed. Me and my brother were very young. We're in our room. And I go to knock on the door at my parents', and it's locked. And, it's one of the, I was like, I was young enough to even know if the door is locked, don't bother knocking. But my parents were like, no, Luke, get away from here. Get away from here. So I went in my room and shut the door because they told me to go in my room, shut the door. And so Austin and I were scared in our room, wondering what's going on. Next thing we know, there's a shotgun blast. And, well, what happened was, because the front door had been left open, a raccoon comes in, goes to my parents' bedroom. My dad doesn't have his glasses on. My dad thinks this is rack 3. They were very creatively named rack 1, rack 2, and rack 3. Rack 3 returning, so Dad picked him up, picked her up, and put her on the bed and was like tickling her tummy, and the raccoon was like, everybody was just
That's the highlight of the story right there.
See, we always had female raccoons. And then Dad, even without his glasses, looked down there and saw these 2 giant cojones down there around that area. And Dad said, oh, God. And Dad got scared, jumped out of the bed. The raccoon got scared, went under Dad's chair and, like, clung to the upper side of the chair. And they couldn't get him out. So we had to call. Dad couldn't find his gun because he was scared me or Austin would accidentally shoot ourselves. He had it in pieces all over the house. We found a trigger and a handle. And so we had to call the greenskeeper from the local golf course to come over, and he had to shoot him. But I mean, can you imagine? Like this
said it wasn't.
Thought we were the most friendly group of people that's ever. This raccoon just walked in like, hey, this house is pretty welcoming. Now they're tickling me. This is wonderful.
You said that story wasn't related to Alabama football, but that was like the most Alabama story ever.
That's a good point. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Hey, y'all keep following. Tell your family and friends and raccoon owners to follow us. We appreciate it. And until tomorrow, roll tide, everybody.